morning and thank you for joining us. This is Sunrise and I am Alera Edu.
You can see we're wearing the colors of sunrise this morning. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome. She's wearing yellow, I'm wearing blue, so you can see. Am I lying? Just remind me of Mr. Afwan, my English teacher in secondary school. I'm saying that noun clauses always answer the question, what? Am I lying?
Is Mr. Afwan still alive?
Could he be alive at this time? I was in secondary school.
Jesus. He might be a rickety old man now, but he just might be watching you. He might be watching you. Oh,
Okay, well,
elections.
Yeah, those things do happen. Today is the Ekiti governorship election, and as you can see, we have been trying to trail those stories for you, so you know what's happening. All the tenders, contenders. I won't forget that information. That interview with Mr. Oti. Yes, all the tenders and all of that. So. Anyway, that's that, and the conversation, has started in Ekiti State, and so many people are already raring. Of course, we're still going to do a crossover, so you see what's happening and how we're going to take things up. But I think what is important at this time is to even let people know that, look, you need to play your part. Whether or not you think your vote will count, don't even give that, don't allow that thought to come. My vote is not going to count. Your vote will count. Whether you vote or not, it will count.
I'm smiling so broadly because I have seen the tsunami of young people going out to get registered. And this is unprecedented. And I am pleased. I'm very happy about that. Because, look, if young people want a change, they've got to take part in the process. They can't say, our vote doesn't count, we're not going to vote, we're just going to sit at home, watch TV or play football on that day. Then they've got no right to complain.
In this Ekiti election, for instance, we had an interview with Mr. Okwe yesterday, and he said that the number of voters in Ekiti for this election is less than 1 million. Number of voters, less than 1 million. In a country where more than half the population are young people. And so I would have expected that. I was a little surprised when he said that. So I asked him, because I checked. As of 2016, Ekiti State had 3.3 million people.
Oh, dear.
So, I mean, fast track, what's that word they use? Extrapolate or whatever, the English word you want to use now. Maybe something in the region of 4 or 5 million. And more than, less than 1 million people are registered to vote officially on the INEC register. So, for me, that was a little disturbing. Are we going to have that kind of experience? I sincerely hope not.
I don't think so.
Now, the interview we had with Samson Itodo, I think it was 2 weeks ago, also comes to mind. There's a difference between voter education and political education.
Yes.
So, voter education is like what you would say at the end of the food chain. Political education is understanding the entire process, getting into the kitchen. Not just at the dining table. Getting into the kitchen, getting to the market to source for who and what. So, young people, please go out and vote. But don't just wait for the end of the food chain. Don't wait just at the end of the table. Get into the system. Literally infiltrate the system. Literally get in en masse.
I can just see some of them looking at you now and looking with,
Well, it's okay.
There they go again. They're talking. A few of us came out. But another thing is, those who came out, those young people who came out for the presidential, what are their antecedents? You start from somewhere. and you climb up the ladder. You get experience from being what? A counselor. From there, you move up to somewhere. Then you move up again before you begin to say, yes, I think I have garnered enough knowledge and experience, and I think I am ripe now to gone for that top position. You just can't leave your school today and say, I want to be president of Nigeria.
Even if you
we all want to be president of Nigeria.
Even if you have run a global conglomerate,
it's not the same thing as running a country.
It's not the same thing as running a country. So that needs to be put out there.
Yeah.
I also recall, a statement credited to the vice president. Look, to get political experience, even if all you started out with is to be an SA to someone, that is part of the process.
Yeah.
Get into this. What's important is to get into the system. I know the trust quotient is like a bank account now. In fact, in red. Is there a word? Crimson red.
Very much in the red. Very much so.
So the trust quotient is gone. However, this is the only process we have. One other thing that is catching on, that I think is quite interesting, is that a number of people are now seeing political parties as recruitment agencies for government officials. Recruitment agencies. So young people, let's get in.
Yeah.
Look, if you're going to change something, I think it was Professor Tomi saying, if you want to change a system, you have to change it from within.
Yeah.
We can't stay on the outside and say, this thing is corrupt. Look, it's not going to get clean if you don't get into the kitchen and wash it out.
I remember when Gamaliel Onosode, blessed memory, when he wanted to be president of this country, and we all who used to attend his church thought, you want to go play that dirty game? And he said, if you want to clean a room, are you going to stay outside to clean it? You got to go into that room.
Absolutely. And get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty. It's not a pleasant sight. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's not exciting.
Yes.
But it needs to be done.
And we also need to let these young people know that with this Electoral Act amendment, if they have read it, if they understand all the explanations that INEC has been giving us, they will see that as soon as they vote, it's uploaded and they can follow it. You can see as the numbers are swelling because everything is
so you upload the results electronically. And then, political education, I am still talking about political education. And a good number of people are ramped up about a particular candidate, and that's an amazing thing. At least we're taking interest. That's exciting.
Have you seen all their jingles? Young people, musicians, there's all kinds of things on the internet. But then I'm also quick to say there's no polling booth on social media.
Oh, I guess we're going to have to wait and see. We're just going to have to
There's no polling booth there. You have to register.
Don't also forget that a good number of people who are on social media and all of those ones, what's the percentage of them as voters? There are the rural areas, there are the hinterlands, there are the different wards who have serious influences, and we need to pay attention to this.
Okay, just before we go to the venue, inflation rate has gone up, mainly fueled by high cost of diesel, Jet A1 fuel, and cooking gas. This diesel matter, I don't know that I've heard government try to address it in any way or say anything. We're not getting power. Our alternative sources of power, even those are being messed up because of high cost of fuel.
Why should government say anything about it? It's a fully deregulated market. That's the diesel.
Maybe NNPC should be telling us something.
Oh, like what?
Why is the price going up so much?
But the news is awash.
Cost of
Russia-Ukraine war is raising the cost of so many things. Don't forget that it even affects food.
Everything has gone up.
And because of
everything has gone up.
Just one war. God, I even heard the sound of that in my own ears. But that's the reality that we find on our hands. However, that doesn't say that the needful shouldn't be done by the agencies of government that have that responsibility. Why should we have high inflation rates when we have high unemployment rate, we have high poverty
Everything
index?
is high.
But
the
there's
dollar
one,
is 606
that's
naira.
high, but there is something that is extremely low: buying power.
We're going to start today's program by looking at how we can secure our democracy.
Well, certainly. And of course, I think it sounds like we've already started that one. And then the next thing will be on focus on health security.
And then naturally, we shall nip off to Ekiti and see how those elections are going on.
It's not really certain whether we're going to wait till that time, but most certainly we will get there.
We may even nip over several times.
Yeah. And then how do we strengthen, this is my favorite, the capacity of MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises? They are still the largest employers of labor.
Tough call. I remember at one point there was a policy that banks should devote X number of their whatever to SMEs, but to access those funds became a headache.
Well, I don't know how easy it can get anyway. Anyway, that's that.
And then we shall end with the Artist of the Week segment, as is usual on Sunrise. And all I can tell you is that he's a he.
Just wanted to be, not a shame.
He's a he. Well, when he comes, you can ask him.
I'll think about it.
Get your whatever it is that you like, whether it is cocoa, just get whatever it is and relax and just spend the next 3 hours odd with us on Sunrise this morning. See you shortly.
The state is under the spotlight as the people elect a new governor. So much is at stake, and Channels Television is your dial for all the latest, with a team of reporters on the ground, combing all the nooks and crannies of the state for the latest news you need. Don't miss our special Election Day Result Analysis Center, the Ekiti Governorship election coverage, live on Channels Television.
Peace and
Thank you for joining us this wet Saturday morning, at least in Lagos. It's rather wet.
Well, it's cool.
We have been in this democracy now for about 3 decades, and an integral part of democracy is the process of electing our leaders. And that still seems to be giving us some problem. We are in the thick of it again. We are preparing for 2023 elections, and an election is actually taking place in a state today. A few months ago, one took place in Anambra State, and we're all preparing for the big one in 2023.
There's
So-
going to be another one before that.
There you go. So there are hiccups here and there, but since we have all decided that democracy is the way we want to go, how are we going to make this democracy better? And how are we going to secure it? That's what we're going to be looking at this morning. And it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Anthony Killer, who is a professor of strategy and development. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Joining us from our studio in Abuja is our old friend, the founder of Nigeria First Initiative, Ezekiel Nya-Etiuk. Morning, Ezekiel.
Good morning. It's sunshine in Abuja.
Oh, good for you. We are in the rain here today. Now, let me start with you, Prof. Now, we have chosen democracy over military rule, which we had for a few decades. Do you think that we are better off now in a democracy?
Well, more than choosing democracy, let us say we fought for democracy against military rule. So I think that's a good place to start from. Well, marginally, we're better off, to the extent that many people can aspire to positions. There is an imperfect process that sort of requires,
Imperfect, underlined in red.
Yes, imperfect there. At least there's a process that we can improve on, and we have logical reason to be aghast if somebody talks by fiat or does decree. There's a logical, legitimate reason. To that extent, yes, things are better. Comparatively, to the extent of governance, and there's a horrible expression that is famous in Nigeria, dividends of democracy. To that extent, no. The quantum leap is not there.
Mm-hmm.
There are some...
We haven't made it yet.
We haven't made it. There's some regressions out there. But overall, there's a marginal thing. But then again, I always argue, bad as democracy can be, democracy is a terrible system, but it's the best system you can adopt. So,
Okay, let me.
It's a terrible system, but it's the best.
Let me tweak
Yes.
something. There are those who argue that we haven't really started democracy. Do you agree with me?
Well, I can see their point. I disagree with them, but I can see their point. I think those are purists, as it were. Those are people who have very clear standard. I think the question we should be asking ourselves is perhaps, why are we still questioning our democracy? What have we got wrong? Because obviously it's not perfect. Even the biggest beneficiaries of it cannot say this is a great system for a very simple reason. Even people who are doing well in this society are not keeping their greatest assets here, i.e. their children and their health. That is a simple way to look at it. You don't hear...
Plus their wealth.
Plus their wealth, which makes it worse. And that tells you a lot. So that if anybody, and here I want our viewers to know that regardless of your partisan position, when you think that even if you think the government of today or the government of yesterday is fantastic, your dream is not to put everything you have in this country. It shows you that things are not very well. That is, it's a basic point.
Before
Yes.
my sincere apologies for butting in.
No,
before I know that Mr. Nya-Etiuk is itching to get into the conversation, but I need to ask you this: since we are talking about securing our democracy,
Yes.
and you've said that we're at the threshold of really getting into the thick of it.
Yeah.
What are the elements it's been 23 years now.
Yeah.
What are the elements of democracy that we have never experienced ever in our history as a nation, or we have not experienced in this republic?
Well, I think, transparency, true equity, but above all, and this is where everything stems from, citizenry. What is missing in everything we're talking about is that we've not been able to create citizens of a democratic system. And you see, citizens of a democratic system, they're very obvious because we're dealing with that now. Citizens of a democratic system are not divided by ethnic lines, nor are they divided by religion lines. They do not have the fear that if somebody that is not from my path is not in power, I might not be safe. That is one thing. Citizenry, then the other thing, because there's no citizens, there's no trust in the system, there is still a need to ask for favor or to be friendly with the government in power. In democracies that work, just because we are the people, it really doesn't matter who's there. I get on with my job, knowing that everything I do is a transparent system that is built to be fair to all. We lack that. Then to make it worse, and a very crucial thing in democracy is that we've not been able to create a nation. We have a state. We've not been able to create an ethos where everybody actually feel truly one and, just trust one another, or if they don't trust one another, trust the consequences, trust the law, trust the system.
Well,
that is what is missing.
I think you've only said citizenry in a completely different way.
Exactly.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Nyaitok. Well, we've had this conversation several times, Mr. Nyaitok, and I'm just wondering, first of all, where you would want to start from. You've been in the system, and you have traversed a good number of parties, and you have seen some things that is putting this democracy at risk. Of course, you've listened to Professor Killer. What are your thoughts on what may have weakened our democracy until now, or not giving it the oomph it needs to be as strong as we need it to be and functional for the people?
Knowledge and understanding. There's what I call the concept of the essence. Going by, or starting with where you started from, talking about the military and democracy. First, within the concept of the essence, the military is designed, trained to protect our territorial integrity. They are designed, they are trained to protect our territorial integrity. On the other hand, democracy is about governance of a nation. The people that should come in there should be designed, trained to manage the resources of the people to the larger interest of the generality of the people. That is why democracy is described as government of the people, by the people, for the people. So a military man is trained to be apprehensive, to attack, and spare not. Whereas a leader who is the head of a democratic institution is trained to have empathy, sympathy, to care about the generality of the people, and within that context, to manage the resources of the people such that the people derive maximum benefit from his leadership or the governance. Now, when we understand, so immediately we throw away the military from the mix and we come back to the governance. What we've had so far is a misunderstanding of the essence of government and governance. That's why we have problems with what you call prebendalism, or, this clannishness. It is our turn. It is now, we see it as where we go to share, and the sharer takes the lion's share. We don't see it as where we go to beg for the generality of the people. So as long as we do not have the conversation tailored towards the essence of democracy, the essence of election, what we want to achieve. To that extent, we will continue to go on a wrong trajectory. But I think that we are starting gradually to see things from a completely different paradigm. And 2023 is, for me, pivotal. It's a turning point. And I dare say that against all naysays, I can see a movement, a shift in a direction that I have prayed for a long time. And I listened to your intro. You talked about the youth, coming in droves. And we also say, oh, don't only register, move. No, let's start from step one. A lot of times we bring step two. First is that something has made them to go out to register. Something has made them to go out to register. So please encourage them, go register, go register, go register. There's going to be a time when that line is drawn. At that time, and we are lucky for the very first time, very soon, mark my words, this issue of big parties is going to become a non-issue. APC, PDP is going to be a non-issue very soon, because I've looked at parties like ADC, where I belong, African Democratic Congress, and the young man that has been brought in as a presidential candidate is a revolution. I've looked at another party, because this is a general analysis platform, a party like SDP. I don't know if you've listened to Wale Adewale. These are people, and then, of course, the rave of the moment, Mr. Peter Obi of Labour Party. Even if you take just these three parties for now, okay? And, of course, Mr. Education, Mr. Kwankwaso, is an old man, like an old wine in a new wine skin, somebody who is coming with something exciting on education. If you take just these four people, you take that is ADC candidate, Mr. Dumebi Kachiku, SDP candidate, Wale Adewale, Labour, Peter Obi, and NNPP. You can see that there is going to be a robust engagement, discussion. And these are not the times that you just finish primaries and in 6 weeks we're having election. No. We finish primaries, we still have 2 months to put things together, resolve issues, and then 6 months. And I want to see let me take 6 people this time. I want to see Tinubu stand on the podium. I want to see Atiku stand on the podium. I want to see Dumebi Kachiku on the podium. I want to see Peter Obi on the podium. I want to see Kwankwaso and, of course, my friend Adewale. I want to see these 6 people engage Nigerians. And I want to tell the 2 big parties that they should do themselves that favor of seeing the future and seeing what they are up against. I think the time is up, and the game is up, and Nigeria is in for a good time. That's my understanding.
And Professor, you said something earlier, which I had made a point that I was going to take you up on. You said we have a state, not a nation.
Not a nation.
Okay. I would like you to talk more to that. What is the difference between a state and a nation?
Well, a state is an institution, it's just the bureaucratic elements that put people together by law. A nation is a feeling, is a sense of a past shared, a future dream, and a present for which you want to lay stake on. It's about language, it's about culture, it's about mutual feeling. There are nations who are natural nations, like the Yoruba nation, like the Igbo nation. Those are natural nations because they share common origin, they share common language. But there are states who are turned to nation. One of the first duties of leadership in a state is to turn state to nation. And I dare say Nigerian leadership has failed totally on that. Because the way you do it, I'll give you an example. You take the United States, for example. But I don't like to do international examples. I only like to keep it local. They say like the United States, for example, it's a collection of different nations. But they've been able to create a dream, which they call the American dream. So that regardless of where you come from originally, so whether you're Italian American, Nigerian American, Chinese American, at some point you feel the sense of being American because the founding fathers and consistently the fathers, the rulers of that nation, the leaders, have continued to bear in mind that ethos so that once you have that passport, once you reside there, you have a sense of this is what matters to me. And to tell you symbolically, but also practically, how important it is. The address of the Union yearly is called the State of the Nation. And the presidents ended by saying, towards a more perfect nation. So for over 100 years, they've been working on it to know that this thing must be done. I have a concern that our leaders in Nigeria have not actually thought. Actually, they've thought about it. They've just been incompetent to do it, because they do jingles. They talk about feel Nigeria, do Nigeria, but I go back to citizenry. But what makes people become part of a system to feel that ethos is about citizenry? It's the idea that you know that because I'm Nigerian, certain things are there for me. Because I'm Nigerian, I have certain benefits. I have certain safeguards. Because I hold this passport, because I live in this place, I have certain rights. That is not there. So when we talk about the flaws in our democracy and we're trying to make our democracy work, I start from the people. There's a lot of emphasis, rightly, there's a lot of emphasis on leadership, but I think it's actually the role of people in that system you call democracy that matters most.
Prof, did we never have this in our minds, or we lost it at some point?
Yes, we lost it, and there's a date when we lost it. We lost it in 1966. In the history of Nigeria, the founding fathers of Nigeria, those who started very well. They had very lofty ideas, great speeches, big vision. They wanted to be the giant of Africa. When you talk about giant of Africa, the biggest black nation in the world, that itself is already an ethos to want to create. And towards that extent, they started creating big things because their view was to get to the podium of the world and stand out. But you see, I recap my view on this. The history of Nigeria, when you say did we miss it, I'll tell you how we missed it. The story of Nigeria is a story of 3 generations. There's a generation of the dreamers, the visionaries, the Awolowo, that vision of big speeches, yes, that had big ideas and were growing things. Then came the generation of gunmen. Those ones just shot their way into power, ill-prepared. The first thing they did was to break a federal system, a regional system. Then, and they ruled by decree. No big speeches, no big vision.
There are those who argue that they didn't want to get into government. They just had to take over.
Well, for whatever reason, that's the why. I disagree, but let's assume it's true. Let's assume it's not concede. But once they were there, they made a mess of it, overall. They did some things, but overall, they made a mess of it. And this is important to say, not because I hate the military, I've got lots of friends, but it is important to say that given the possibility to act by fiat, in which the military minister will just decide that let's do this and he gets it done, they've done very little because they didn't even have all the complications of a democratic process. They didn't take the quantum leap. Rather than discipline Nigeria, they became indisciplined. If they came to correct anything, they became uncorrectable by themselves. After the government, then came the generation of hustlers and crumble people. The people who, even when they came into power democratically, they are the quote-unquote social, economical children of the gunmen. They are beggars. That is why today we have a democracy where you find fathers of family calling themselves other people's boys. That is where you find this deferential system where somebody who in his own neighborhood, in his own constituency, is supposed to be a leader groveling at the feet of somebody else. That is why maybe some of the people you said we're not in democracy yet. To that extent, they have a point. The kind of things we see in our democracy are alien to the spirit of democracy. That is where we are the problem. But I still believe that, yes, leaders have a lot of duty, but I think we need to start from the people. It is the soil. We are looking at the fruit, but in reality, it's the soil that we should need to look at, because these leaders, they come from the people as well.
Okay. Mr. Yetok, you want to speak to that? I know that you are an advocate of getting people together to believe in a particular ethos towards a particular goal. This citizenry thing that Prof is talking about, what's your take on it? I ask because I know it's in the Constitution, not just in the laws, in the ground of the country, in the very soul of the nation. The Constitution makes it clear what the functions, the duties of the citizens are. But he also spoke to the fact that there is a greatly depleted bank of trust. So how do we get the citizenry to do what they need to do with such a depleted trust resource?
I always quote this passage in the Bible. God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Nigeria has the most lovely, most trusting, most enterprising set of people in the whole world. And I say that with knowledge and every sense of responsibility. There's hardly any part of this world I've not gone to. I've lived, interacted with all sorts of. I've never seen a group of people like Nigerians. They are trusting, they are believing, but they have had this misfortune of being led and directed by very honest people who take advantage of the vulnerability of the Nigerian. Nigerians have come to believe certain things, and these things are the lies. They've come to see themselves as the power belonging to them, and they have become crumb eaters. They have not come to understand the power they have as a people. That is why when democracy came, there's been stages of trying to make the people just lose confidence in themselves. There was a time where when you go to vote, they intimidate you, and they harass you and fight and everything, and you run away. So they take control of your power. Then time came when they now resorted to, things like vote buying, where we are today. The people are starting to say, this belongs. They say, okay, yeah, it belongs. You don't have money, don't worry. I can take decision for you, blah, blah, blah. Then there's going to be a third phase where we are going to this generation, where we are going to enlighten the people. We are going to tell them that getting a cup of rice and wrapper to last you for 4 years is an aberration that will never get to happen. But rather, tying your stomach for 4 days and enjoying for 4 years is what will make life better for you. So I think that it is a phase where we are coming to enlighten the people, and Nigerians are very intelligent.
Well,
they are extremely
Mr. Yeto,
cerebral.
if you can hear
the way
me,
you are doing.
just 1 second. You know that this issue that you raise now is not just happening for the first time, not just in this republic. We've heard this for decades. I mean, even as far back as the first republic. You would remember what in the Southwest was called wet air. It's largely due to some of these issues that you are raising. It's not the issue of conscientizing the people generally for the national ethos, but the people are easier to conscientize for certain personal benefits of some people. That's happened in the First Republic. It's happened in the Second Republic. It actually saw to the end of the Second Republic. Happened in the Third Republic. Happened now. It's still happening now. And this, what you're saying is that we need this knowledge and all. So I'm just wondering what role government has to play in all of these. If this is the process that we have to get leaders into office to do jobs for the Nigerian people, what is missing? Is it a function of a poverty of enforcing the laws, a system that is unable to compel lining up with the Constitution, which clearly states the duties of the citizen, or that we are not communicating these things to people? It's one thing to have knowledge, it's another thing altogether to do it.
Okay. I'll tell you this, and we need to understand this as clearly as possible. There's what you call the law of self-preservation. We have made the blunder of getting people into the seat of power who never got in there for the essence, which is baking the cake for the people, but for themselves. They are in control. Right now, we are expecting them to leave the power that they've enjoyed so much, the paraphernalia of office, and do the right thing. And I'm telling you, it's never going to happen. These are people who didn't get in there because of their willingness to serve the people, it's been a commercial enterprise. And for as long as, look at what's going on today, you can see a man like, let me be a little more whatever, Peter Obi says, look, I'm coming here to serve you, I can pay you. Mr. Dumebi Kachuku goes on, the primaries, he says, I can pay you. Nigerians are starting to say, yes, we like you, but cannot pay us, but you can work for us. That is why they call Peter Obi stingy and all sorts of things, but the momentum is gathering. A time comes. We cannot, if you have, I've said this before on this station, and I'll say it again. If you have a car, you can see the windscreen spreads from end to end, from top to bottom, is very large. But the rear view mirror is very small and just there. You cannot drive with a rear view mirror always looking at the past. But it is important. That is why it's there. But there's a larger future in front of us. So the issue is, what do we do now that we are here? The first is that we understand that the people that got in there got in for themselves, so they're not going to change anything. So my expectation is not on leadership current to make a difference. Rather, I am more on the followership being enlightened and being made to take their position and enforce their rights. Okay. Look at the Electoral Act. Did you see it was thrown away? Let's not forget, let's use that little red mirror for a while and see how many times it's been thrown away until the people rolls up and says, never again, it's not going to happen anyway. It's not going to happen. Okay. The pressure was mounted so much that it became impossible for these people to continue a process that will always benefit them. Okay. As a result, we are having an electoral act that the people can say, this makes sense. And you can see the resultant effect of it. People are moving out in droves to go and register. That is step one in the right direction.
And I completely...
I know it's happening in the first generation, the second, the third, but there is always a time that things change. And that time is now.
I agree with you. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. Taking the first step of getting your PVC is definitely a good one. But let's speak to institutions, Prof, in the space of strengthening our democracy, securing our democracy, ensuring our democracy, insulating. I'm using all the words that a professor can use. Insulating our democracy. There are those who have pointed at institutions being weaker than individuals, even though it's the same individuals that make up institutions. How do we rearrange this?
Well, you see,
maybe I should take you back again. Where did we miss it?
Where did we miss it?
Where did we lose the institutional frameworks that held our states towards our journey towards the nation and perhaps truncated it? And how do we get back to
How do we get back to it? I think where we start from is to understand the paradox of democracy. There's a two-side paradox in democracy. One is that democracy is that system where, paradoxically, those who need to be guarded, those who need to be vigilated, are the ones that still makes the law themselves. That is a huge problem. Because when we talk about electoral malpractices, when we talk about violence, talk of bribing, we talk of vote buying,
there was.
We say it as if it's some people coming from Mars to do it, or as if it's somebody who goes by you in the Keja or Notion that you won't say again. It's actually, they're known people. We even know, we have their biographies, we have their CV, we could find them if we wanted to. That's a paradox. The other paradox, and this goes to where in your intro to the program, the other paradox of democracy is that, funny enough, democracy is that system where, contrary to other systems, it is those who are not involved in it that can make it work. I'll tell you what I mean. And this is where institution comes in. We have to understand that when we get together in a public forum that is outside our private forum, the guiding light should not be trust. It should actually be distrust. It should be pessimism. And I explain what I mean. We need to, anytime we get together beyond 2 or 3 people to form any kind of society, whether it's political, institutional, community, or anything, the way to get it right, to make institution work, is to assume that something might happen tomorrow. A good man might turn bad. A wise man might go mad. Let us just assume, let us not say the man is good today, so let's give him everything. No. we have to assume that going forward, a fool might be elected. Because after all, what makes people elected is persuasion. It's just to say, like me, like me, like me. It's not that.
So that's the reason for institutions.
Yes, that is the reason for institution. And that institution has to be built on fear, on the idea and the anxiety that what if a madman goes there tomorrow? Let us make sure he hasn't got so much power to kill the rest of us or to subdue the rest of us. To make institution work, there's another key. That's where we need to go back. There must be diversity. I believe, and this is now the final bit to your real question, where did we get it wrong? We got it wrong because when we were building this republic, we did not have nation builders. We had politicians going in. The bit we needed, which we did not get, is what I call the ANC, Association of Non-Contenders. We should have people who say, let us build this system and let us agree that anybody who is part of this building should not be part of it for, say, 25 years. So that the people who are setting the rule will know they will not be players. They will not benefit from it. And their concern will be, let us try a game now. An utopia. We want to do a new country. Let's assume that, given what we know about Nigeria and the world, we get together and say, let us do a new country. What will be our concern? We're going to set up a system where we know that money cannot buy your way into power. We're going to set up a system doing that violence will not get your way into power. We're going to set up a system we know that once you get there, you're not going to bring your children, your husband, your wives, and your things to go and occupy all the positions. That we're going to create a system where everybody will have a fair chance, equal chance to that same system. That is institution building.
That sounds so un-Nigerian.
But that's institution. That is what we lack.
That's some utopia.
Well, until you get it, it is. And you know what? I go back to the United States, and I don't know why I'm doing this today. It's very unlike me.
Yeah, when you were talking, I was thinking Trump, case in point.
Case in point, Trump. You see, Trump could have gotten away with it. The reason why I didn't get away with it is because of the system in place. When people were worried about what was happening, I realized people don't know how the White House works.
Those systems are run by people.
Yes.
And largely, the public service system is the institution you're talking about. I read a post, in the course of the week. You will laugh at this. So a politician, assumably, is in office, and he has a civil service system around him. So there's been this conversation with some fellow they want to give a contract to, says, okay, you give me this contract, I'm going to give you X amount. So he says, approved, and gives it gives it to the civil servants to enforce it.
Yes.
And when he was expecting the guy to pay, he wouldn't pay. The guy brought back the file and says, the civil servant told him, write not in front of it, approved. And then next thing, the guy now said, oh, wow, it's all gone. So says, okay, I'm going to have to pay. So after he's paid, the civil servant comes back and says, write E in front of note, comma, approved. So now, how do you use that kind of system or alter that kind of system in a way that it's not tweakable? Because ultimately, the engine of government is public service.
You're very
civil
right.
service.
I'll give a short answer to that very complex thing. It's because we don't think it's true. And I ask viewers, have you ever wondered why when you write checks, fill in bank tellers, or write documents, they ask you to write it in words and in numbers? It is because nobody fiddles with it. We have to think that way, that even in approved or not approved, there has to be a civil service language that does not allow somebody to talk with it. Some people have to be sitting down. That is their job. You see, in traditional societies, from the Egyptian to the Yoruba societies, there were a group of thinkers who were not part of power. It's part of what is missing in our society. There should be people whose bread and butter is thinking about how to get institutions to work. And those people don't need to be politicians. And they need to be living as good as you can imagine, perhaps better than politicians. Here's another thing about institutions. Power is a battle. I see people talk about unity and peace. It's overrated. In reality, a system that works thrives on confrontation and contest. Everybody should be seeking their power, not everybody trying to be politicians. The judiciary, the media, doctors, barbers, and carpenters, they should be thinking of how do I remain in the judiciary? How do I remain in media without having to bow to those in politics? So I'm going to guide my power very well. So I don't need to be one of them. I can make a living decently with dignity just by my trade and my profession. So we don't all need to go to the villa to have a country to work. And how do we do it? Whilst we are where we are, in our classrooms, in our laboratories, and in our newsrooms, we make sure that those ones out there do not get away with it. In a way, quote unquote, we have to develop suspicion and even, and I say this really quote unquote, a sense of hatred for those in power, not loving them and following them.
Okay. Ezekiel, we have to start winding down now. I want to get your reaction to all that that Professor said in 1 minute.
If possible.
Okay. See, the topic today is securing our democracy. And I want to say that we should think about this. The security of our democracy is not in the hands of the politicians. It's in the hands of you and I that know the right thing to do. And we are expecting a dog to meow or a cat to bark. I got in to contest the governorship of Akwa Ibom State on the platform of ADC. Not because it's convenient, but because somebody's got to do it. I come on television and I talk and talk and talk. Why can't I step in to get it done? Secondly, you listening to me, you know who makes sense in this country to be your governor in your state, to be your president. Be the structure of that person. Go out of your way, support that person. Because if not so, the good people don't have the resources. Those who have the resources are entrepreneurs. So you need to be the structure of these people that, oh, he doesn't have the structure. What is structure? To secure our democracy, you listening to me need to take up today. You don't need to contest. But look at the councillor, look at the House of Assembly member, the senator, the governor, that makes sense in your state and support the person. Let him fail with your money. Let him succeed with your money. Okay. When we do that, next time more people will be encouraged that makes sense, knowing that so long as their sound bites are right, they will be supported by the generality of the people.
Okay, Ezekiel.
Are either the answer or the problem.
Quickly, your last word on this matter.
Nigerians, go get your PVC. Get registered. It is getting better. Support any candidate you believe in. Reach out to that person today. And 2023 will be a turning point, and I dare say the breaking of dawn for Nigeria.
Professor Killer?
Oh, well, I agree. Well, get your PVC. I say get your PVC because it could be worse if you don't get it. Not that it's getting better.
Oh, God. Professor Anthony Killer, Professor of Strategy and Development. Thank you very much for coming. He was in our studio in Lagos, and we had Ezekiel Etu, founder Nigeria First Initiative, who joined us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you both very much for joining us this morning and sharing your insights with us. Sunrise will be right back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Sunrise is getting better. That I can tell you. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying with us. I want to talk about health security. Do you remember COVID-19? Well, it was just 2 years ago.
Who doesn't remember COVID-19? When our lives changed so drastically.
And one of the things that makes it rather outstanding for me and for many people is the revelation by the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 that, he didn't know that we, as health infrastructure or apparatus, were so poor. And that was a shocker for him, even as Secretary to the Government.
Yes, and since then, what improvements have you noticed?
Well, there have been some improvement in some, those, I don't know, what's the name of those things they built over the country? Anyway, well, those test centers and stuff like that, those laboratories, our doctors who are guests this morning on this issue will be able to help. So how do we make this? Because, okay, just as you said, there are those who are asking, okay, so that was a revelation at the time. So what's changed?
Thank you.
How do we make it better going forward? And now that we are recruiting a new set of people to government to do things for us,
Time to take them up.
time to take
What
them
are you
up.
planning for us in the health
In the
sector? Are we
area
going to
of-
get better health services?
So that's why we have Dr. Gafara Laode with us this morning. He is Project Director, Prevent Epidemics Project, Listel. He joins us along with Dr. Emmanuel Hassan, who is a public health advocate. Both of them join us from our studios in Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you for being here this morning. Well, there are those who would naturally ask the question. Let me begin with you, Dr. Alaude. When we talk about health security, what are we talking about?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning all, and thanks for having me. When we're talking about health security, we are talking about anything that can increase our vulnerability to public health events. So public health events like what we just saw, the COVID-19, which affect a lot of people. It could be from the environmental hazard, like can have a gas leakage and wherever. So anything that can increase our acute vulnerability to public health event, whether it is coming from a condition from animal, we have zoonotic like COVID-19, whether it is coming from environmental hazard, and whether it is coming from a human condition as well. So anything that can make us to be more vulnerable, that can cause casualty, mass casualty, and increase mobility within a short period. I think that is what we are looking at in terms of strengthening our health security generally, whether locally and internationally.
Well, Dr. Hassan, is that to say we're extremely vulnerable? Because there are those who will be wondering, if we have a national health policy and we have a system in place to ensure that people don't get fatally sick, should be okay. Are we vulnerable? How strong, how vulnerable are Nigerians generally in terms of our health security?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We are very vulnerable in Nigeria. We are bordered by several countries, and even within Nigeria, you know that on any given day, you go to any park in Nigeria, you see people traveling, crisscrossing the country. You also see people crisscrossing the globe. There's hardly any day you go to any of the international airports, you don't see Nigerians traveling in and out. And so we are very, very, very vulnerable. We are vulnerable locally because there's a lot of interactions. Nigerians are very active people. They are very social people. And so it's easy that when you have a cholera outbreak, for instance, or you have an outbreak of any other infectious disease, that you find that it can spread very, very easily. And so we are vulnerable. We're also vulnerable because the health infrastructure, the surveillance systems, they are not yet where they are supposed to be. You could see that for COVID, for instance, the first case walked just across through the International Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. And if government had not acted, at least the best they could, we would have had more fatalities than we had. So these are so we are, simply put, we are very vulnerable.
Dr. Hassan, when you were talking, I just recalled my visit to Australia, and I noticed that people were not even allowed to take fruit from the aircraft into the country. They were all seized. You are a public health advocate. How much advocacy are you doing in that area to get government to make such policies so that seeds, for instance, and foods that can carry insects and stuff like that, and fruits do not come into Nigeria and make us even more vulnerable?
Thank you very much. So we have been working with quite a number of civil society organizations to advocate for strengthening, first increasing awareness on health security in Nigeria and also increasing funding. Of course, for instance, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and some of the agencies under that ministry actually are part of what we call the National Action Plan for Health Security in Nigeria. We have other ministries, Ministry of Environment, Dr. Alawade had alluded to the role of the environment. And so in terms of policies, we already have policies in place, that is supposed to strengthen our surveillance, to strengthen the relevant officials at our ports of entry, whether through the sea or by air, which is what most people use, to ensure that some of these products do not enter our country. They should be, these are things that should be seized and destroyed. Not just fruits, but even animals, because like, again, Dr. Alawade alluded to, we have zoonotic diseases that can be passed or, transmitted from animals to men. We've been doing a lot of work. And so, for instance, before the COVID-19, came in, part of our advocacy at the outset of the breakout of the issue in China was our advocacy to lawmakers. And I remember that we went to Lagos, to the international airport, and also to the Apapa port to look at the state of preparedness. And to the utmost shock, for instance, of the senators we went with, Senator Otazi, Senator Olorebe, Honorable Sununu, and the special advisor on health to the Senate president. A flight just, disembarked passengers, and even though the COVID had already started spreading from China to other countries, we saw that the protocols were not being really adhered to, and they had to really call on the relevant authorities to put all those strict measures in terms of, getting passengers to wear, nose masks, to ensure that all the materials for hand washing and all of that were enforced. In fact, even the emergency, center at the point in time had issues. So these were some of the things that they noticed, and I think they also engaged, with the Federal Ministry of Health, engaged with other relevant, organizations to ensure that those systems really were strengthened. Unfortunately, the first case of COVID walked through the door just about a week to 10 days after that visit. So a lot of work is being done. Lisdale and other civil society organizations have had, policy discourses, they've had roundtables, they've had breakfast meetings, other NGOs like the Nigeria Health Watch, like Budget, have been involved in this great work in ensuring that the health security systems are really strengthened in the country. A lot has improved, a lot has been done, but there is still a huge gap, and we need to do more about this. And that is why it is important that we begin to engage the political class at this point in time ahead of the 2023 elections, right from the grassroots level to the national level, from the ward chairman of political parties to all the aspirants and candidates to tell us exactly how they intend to strengthen health security ahead of the elections.
Okay.
I think let me stop here for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Olawode, it's heartwarming to know that things are being done at least to ensure that we're secure from diseases that are brought into the country, as in things are being done at the international airports. Now, let's bring it home. What about locally? We understand that many local governments do not even have health centers. So should one fall ill in a particular local government that doesn't have a health center, where does one go? What are you doing in that regard to make sure that there are health centers in every locality so that the people have somewhere to go to should they have any health issues? Not to mention, of course, the money they're going to pay when they get there. That's another topic altogether.
Health security and the universal health coverage that you are talking about in terms of people having access are two sides of the coin. If you don't make necessary arrangement for the basic primary health care services to be accessible, to be affordable, it increases vulnerability to public health emergencies, and it increases vulnerability to health security issues as well. So what you are talking about now, I see it from the prism of universal health coverage in terms of ensuring that Nigerians have access to needed health care, but with emphasis around without financial hardship, because there are instances where people sell their belongings, borrow money to be able to access the needed care. That is not universal health coverage we are talking about. We are talking about a situation where people have access to it. I think the various organs of government, they have put measures in place to ensure that, so for the supply side of health, I think the National Primary Care Development Agency is working hard to ensure that at least there's one functional primary health care in every geopolitical ward of the country. And then from the supply demand side, in terms of even with the services available, who is going to pay for it? So we have some policy, the government has a policy framework in place. So there's basic care provision fund, for instance, which by law is supposed to buy basic minimum package of services for all Nigerians by law. Of course, and then this is from 1% consolidated revenue of the federal government, which because this present administration has started implementing. But are there gaps? Yes, there are still huge gaps because the policy framework is there. But in terms of the funding, adequacy of funding, the basic care provision fund that I talk about can only take care of just probably a fraction of the population of the country because of the amount of resources that is in existence. And that is why if you look at the coverage of health insurance in Nigeria today, only less than 5% of Nigerians are covered. And we are talking about universal health coverage. We want a situation where at least 80 to 90% of Nigerian population that will be covered by a very, very effective health insurance or financial protection mechanism, so that when people fall ill, one, they will be able to access good quality care, not just any care. And then they will not suffer financial hardship. So that's been, now that brings us to what the advocates in Nigeria are doing, trying to take advantage of this policy reset window that comes with general election. If you look at countries that are doing well in terms of making progress on the journey of universal health coverage, there are some things that are actually common to all of them. And what is very, very common to them is that they started their process as a more of a political process than technical process. And they took advantage of election period to really sell key policy trust that is very, very important, that will now become part of the manifesto of the political parties, manifestos of flag bearers, and which form the basis for holding them accountable. So that takes me to what a forum called Universal Health Coverage 2023 Forum, which is an assemblage of different partners, civil society, and donor agency, and well-meaning Nigerians that actually came together and say, how do we take advantage of this policy reset window? How do we put health on the political front burner? And when you say put health on the political front burner, you have to be very clear about what exactly do you want in health you want to put on the political front burner. And part of what this body has done is to develop what they call health agenda, citizen-led health agenda, or health manifesto in code, which actually articulates what are the key targets that we want to see in terms of improvement in healthcare across several parameters, which include universal health coverage I'm talking about in terms of proportion of Nigeria that are covered by health insurance, looking at what, in terms of coverage of services, for instance, what proportion of our deliveries are attended to by skilled birth attendants. It will shock you to know that more than half of the delivery that take place in Nigeria are not attended to by a skilled professional. In terms of immunization coverage, for instance, between the children between 12 months and 2 years, almost 70% of them are not fully immunized, which is very, very unfortunate. So across these parameters, the body has tried as much as possible to set targets in terms of, when you are talking to the political, in the past, when the politicians want to tell you, they will say, oh, we'll make health free for all of us. I don't say no. We want to be one specific in terms of what you really want to achieve within the 4 years, maybe as a president, as a governor, like Dr. Alassane said, as a chairman of local government, for instance, in your own contribution, what target do you want to achieve? And it's not only enough to set those targets. There are some key policy trusts that must be in place. You cannot continue to do things the same way, and to achieve if you want to achieve different results, you cannot continue to do things in the same way.
Okay.
So this body has actually looked at what are the key policy trusts that we want the political class to pay attention to,
and what
for them to be able to achieve targets that we're talking about.
And what are these policy thrusts that need to be addressed?
Okay, thank you very much. So in terms of a key policy trust, so number one that we've identified is a policy trust around how do we optimize existing health resources in terms of man, money, and materials that we're actually deploying in the health sector. And the second dimension of the same policy trust is how do we optimize existing policy trusts. Let me start with the optimizing existing policy trusts. There are a lot of very, very interesting, very, very great policy trusts in the health sector today. Take, for instance, the National Health Act of 2014 make provision for a certificate of standard that any health provider, any health institution in Nigeria today, whether private or public, for you to be able to operate in Nigeria, you must obtain a certificate of standard, and that you must have some standard in place that qualifies you to operate in Nigeria, so that you'll be able to provide good quality health services for Nigeria. Unfortunately, that is not being implemented yet. So in terms of optimizing policy, we want the political class to optimize that policy. Another important policy trust, the same National Health Act 2014 makes a provision for the Honorable Minister at the national level to provide annual state of the health report, which is going to be a very, very detailed report in terms of how, what resources has the health sector received, how has the health sector performed, and what are the issues, what are the challenges, which will form the basis for holding the system accountable. These are very beautiful policy trusts that have not been implemented. So coming back to the issue of man, money, and material that I'm talking about, the health financing landscape in Nigeria is grossly inefficient. It's grossly underfunded, but at the same time, the little resources that we are spending, we are not getting the best out of those resources.
Okay.
And that could be traced to even how we budget for health, in terms of we budget that's what they call input base, which is not actually targeted to, in terms of what results we want to achieve and all those things.
Yeah.
So there are other policy trusts.
I know there are quite a number, Dr. Alawade. But let me ask Dr. Hassan this one, because you talked something you said the other time that piques my interest from the question, your response to the question Alara asked you earlier about let me just say it in a different way: imported diseases or imported infections and all of that. So I'm wondering how that is domesticated. Here is what I mean, Dr. Hassan. So
Are there policies that you think can protect our people to the extent that there are some things that should not be brought in to the country? There are some things, there are some practices we need to establish so that under no circumstance should these things be brought into the country as a way of protecting the people. Because ultimately, people go from the airports, through the major cities, through this, suburban areas, to the rural areas, because they want to go and see their people and all of those things. And, they take some of these things and take to those people who have never seen this quote-unquote civilization. So are there things that you think we can do to protect our people internally? Then we can now deal more decisively with the homegrown infections.
Thank you very much. I'll try to approach this from two perspectives. One, but at the end of the day, it will still be prevention, prioritizing prevention. So there are already laws in this regard. And for instance, the NCAA is part of the National Action Plan on Health Security, architecture. They are part and parcel of it. Office of, the National Security Advisor. All these offices and agencies are part of that. The issue is enforcing those laws. There are items that are banned, they are not supposed to come in. There are items that can come in, but they need to have been certified, they need to have been checked, they need to have been, declared fit for use, and they need to be packaged in a particular manner. There are rigorous conventions around all of those. What we need to do is to strengthen the implementation of all of that. So we need we need people who are aspiring to relevant offices in the land to say, look, we would ensure, I am aspiring to be so. I would ensure that we strengthen laws that will make sure that diseases don't just walk in through the door like it has done in time past. And this should be done in a sustainable manner. And I should be able to, if I'm aspiring for a position, to state very clearly how I'm going to do that. The other side that I want to talk about is at the state and the local government and the community ward levels, you should ask your aspiring chairman, somebody who wants to contest to be chairman of your local government, somebody who is in charge of your ward, the councillor in charge of your ward. What should we do to ensure that even if, for any reason, a disease has found its way to the country, that in our own community, in our own state, we are able to educate the people, health promotion, citizen engagement, very, very important, to ensure that we protect ourselves. So at the practical level, it is important for community associations, for CBOs, community-based organizations, to begin to engage their citizens and to tell them, increase the level of awareness, to also educate them to demand for more practical solutions. I'll give you an example. One time I was asked to present a paper on the state of health infrastructure in my senatorial zone. And I couldn't go around, but I asked a few people to help me go around all the primary healthcare centers. And I tell you, in my mother's, the primary healthcare center in my mother's village, the pictures that came back to me was that of a center that had goats, and sheep actually sleeping in front of the primary healthcare center, and then, luckily, one of the local politicians eventually came to do something about that. We already have primary healthcare centers in practically almost every ward in Nigeria. Are they functioning?
That's the
Most of them are
question.
not.
That's the question that I want to ask you, Dr. Hassan. That's the next question that I want to ask you.
Okay.
Perhaps the people themselves don't even know that these issues can become election matters, election issues. There are elections going on right now in Ekiti State, and I'm wondering, you know, people like your mother's example that you give, for instance, people like your mom, you know, wanting to say, okay, what are you going to do about health security in my village? How is it? How do the people even know what to ask for? It's one of the, perhaps, you know, you want to speak to how we, the people who know, can do that. Tell people these are the ways, these are the things to ask for from some of these people that want you to employ them into offices at whatever level, councillor, chairman, governor, House of Assembly member.
Thank you very much. And that is part of the objective of this kind of engagement, to begin to speak to Nigerians. And start from your community. Start with your community. I've had to personally engage youths and girls, you know, in my constituency, so to speak, in my village, in my mother's village, to talk to them about health and to talk to them about things that we can do. That is from an individual perspective. I've talked about associations. We have village associations. We have branches all over in the urban centers. These are things that you should discuss, and these are things you should now engage with your chief or the king of your village, you know, of your community. That, look, during their quarterly meetings of, you know, you could actually, the king of a village, for instance, can actually convoke a meeting to discuss these issues. It should be one of the key issues they should prioritize, you know, to say, look, for our sons and daughters who want to run for elective positions, we want to have an engagement with you. We want you to tell us what you are going to do with regards to these primary healthcare centers that are probably, you know, lying fallow without being used, or they are being used but they are not being optimized, or that, you know, they probably supply health commodities, you know, pharmaceuticals, and then they are maybe misappropriated or diverted. Those are issues
perhaps another
that
question,
at the village,
Dr.
at the
Hassan,
community level.
if you don't mind me butting in, perhaps another question that you want to answer there is, do people even prefer orthodox medicine to what they are used to growing up? You know, that's perhaps another level of conversation altogether. Don't answer that one yet. Or maybe I should ask
at the level of local government.
Yes.
Yeah, in the rural areas.
Yes, exactly. So, Dr. Alawade, you want to speak to that? You know, perhaps even though the health infrastructure is, you know, well thought out, people may not even know how useful, functional, important, or efficacious these issues are for them. To what effect then, as Dr. Hassan said, there are goats feeding and sleeping in front of a primary health center in the village?
Okay, thank you very much. I think what you just said actually reminds me of what our senior colleagues used to say in medical school days. Then they would say, as a medical doctor, you are the third on call, because people must have visited the Avalis and all sorts of people before coming to you. And it has to do with our health-seeking behavior generally, which is linked in most cases to the level of education, because you know, multisectoral approach to health is very, very important. So coming back to the issue of health-seeking behavior, so it's a very, very important aspect of it. People need to have some understanding about nature of nature of sicknesses, what they need to do, where to seek help, and then it is when they know what to do, where to seek help, that is when there is gap in the supply of that health. That is when it becomes a significant issue to them. Because in the first instance, when they believe, and let me give you an instance to buttress your opinion on that. So there was a survey we did in one community, because we wanted to roll out bed net for malaria, for instance. And we discovered that people were collecting the bed net, which was supposed to prevent them from malaria, and they were using the bed net for fishing. And when we were so shocked, I would try as much as possible to find out what was happening. And then we now stumble on the study done earlier on in terms of knowledge, attitude, and practice of people, where they would try to ask the question, simple question, what causes malaria, for example? And 80% of respondents said, oh, you have malaria when you stay too long under the sun or when you farm too long for a long period. So that kind of a person that never linked mosquito bite to malaria, how will he find a bed net useful? So that underscores the importance of community mobilization, health promotion, effective engagement of the community.
Advocacy.
Which is very central, so that people will be able to know simple, linkages between causes of diseases and the disease they have, and you'll be able to link it to the any treatment that you want to offer them. So that is very, very crucial. And going forward, that is now linked to the issue of citizen demand, even when the election period. So I engaged a couple of senators in the National Assembly, and I tried to find out, in your various constituencies, what do people ask you to do? He said, this is very interesting. I said, what number is health in terms of the list of demand of people? He said, Dr. Alao, don't let me lie to you. Out of the scale of demand of people, health should be placed around number 8 or number 7. First, people want money directly. They want you to give them money. And then they want jobs, they want infrastructure, and they want other things. They hardly mention health as a major issue. And then, what politicians want, they want more political capital. And by that, they want to do more of what people want as much as possible. So when they have little resources, they want to do physical infrastructure, what people can see. But how do we change this paradigm? And that is why part of what Dr. Alassane has said, taking advantage of the election period to engage the citizen as much as possible, to help them, to sensitize them. Some of those things they've already know. It's not everything that they don't know. Like, for example, everybody can tell you amount of money they spent in the last 1 month on health, whether on orthodox practice or buying drugs from the chemists or visiting traditional healers and everything, which is a significant proportion of their income. And at times, some people have been thrown into poverty as a result of our spending. So if we try as much as possible to engage them with this and let them know it is because health system is weak. That's why they are spending this amount of money in the first system.
We could go on and on this conversation. Yeah, we could go on and on. There are quite a number of so many things that, I mean, this looks like the topic for a symposium of like 3 hours. You're actually quite explicit in the descriptions and everything, the knowledge that you're sharing. But for now, we have to thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. And we also will take some learnings from this and raise those health issues with some of our guests going forward so that we can make them the election issues that they ought to be. Dr. Gafar Alawade is a Project Director, Prevent Epidemics Project, Listo. Thank you so much for your time, as well as Dr. Emmanuel Ahazan, who is a public health advocate. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Yes, please. So, Sunrise continues right after now. We'll bring you something else after the break.
Well, that commercial said June 18th, make una come out, make una come vote. Una face show, una shoe shine. Well, today is D-Day. Oh, your shoe shine, eh? But you are in Lagos, so...
Oh, okay, so it doesn't...
No, you don't matter. We're talking about those in Ekiti who are ready to choose a governor. They are all ready. But from the figures you gave me were a bit scary. Only, about 1 million voters registered?
I mean, well, maybe Sean will also be able to speak to that, because that's the figure that... less than 1 million, actually. Yes. That Mr. Festus Okoye gave us yesterday. When he mentioned the specific number, of course. I'm not quite fantastic at remembering numbers. I always hated maths.
Okay, well, let's go over to Sheun now and find out exactly what is happening. Sheun, good morning. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. Alaro, your shoe is shining. You have the luxury of having a shiny shoe. Same with Aya. What we can do is to have our face showing just like the commercial says there. But yes, our face is showing so are the faces of these wonderful people of Ekiti State. June 18 is here, the D-Day, and we are in the moment, living in it, and these people are also part of history. Now, they're here to elect the new governor for Ekiti State, and look, a lot of them, they've been here as early as 7 a.m. They've strong displays. See, Alero, Ayo, look at the queue. A lot of these people have been here. The first thing they do when they get here is to go and check their name right on that board over there on the wall. They check the name on the wall, and when they check the name on the wall, they find out whether or not they are eligible to vote in this polling unit. This is a St. Michael's Secondary School in Ajilosun area of Ado-Ekiti. Don't forget, Ado-Ekiti is one of the largest voting local government areas in Ado-Ekiti. And I'm going to just put you through what is happening right here so you can get a sense of how the exercise is going. Now, a lot of people will be talking about the BVAS, the accreditation process, the voting process. How is that going? What exactly is going on? How is it going? Now, so one after the other, I will let you in on how this exercise, the workflow, if the camera can just come this way. And so whenever you get your PVC, this is the first port of call, and that is the BVAS, the machine, the green machine that does the magic. It does the accreditation, it does the capturing, it has the biometrics, information of every voter. And so if it can capture your face, capture your fingerprint, you get accredited, and when that is done, you are now good to vote. So let's check out how this workflow happens. So basically, the official check through the permanent voter card. There's a permanent voter card in the hands of that man. It belongs to that lady who is standing by. He has checked it on the BVAS. Then they're taking a facial capture. Then he says, she's good to go. And when that happens, she goes round the corner and she comes right here. So this is the point where she comes. You know, she comes right into this place. And this is where, of course, she gets the ballot paper. The ballot paper is being stamped and signed. That means that it's a valid ballot paper. If it's not signed and stamped by the official right here, you cannot see it or, pass it as a valid ballot paper. And when that is done, this is the next port of call. Quickly here. It is the open secret ballot system. And so the voter comes right to this place. And when the voter comes, it tries, use the stamp pad, and thumbprints on the ballot paper. And when that happens, Alero and Ayo, I'm just allowing you, so it comes and drops the ballot paper right into this box. Then you have it. You are done for the day. It looks like a long process, but it's a fruitful one for every voter that can stay in line, that can stay it out. And it looks to me that I'm seeing Ekiti people more enthusiastic, more than ever. I've covered several elections in this state, and I'm seeing people who have stayed all day since 8 a.m. and 8:30 when the voting exercise began. And of course, at the end of the day, people are here. But it's not only in Ado-Ekiti that we are covering the exercise. My colleagues are covering the Central, the North, the East Ekiti Senatorial District of the state. Let's take a look at what my colleague Darido, who has for us in the part where he's covering. And here is Darido and his coverage.
This is Erigino Wodofo in the State Central, and of course the electoral officers are here this morning. They said as soon as they got here, the first thing they have to do, they have to set up the cubicle. After setting up the cubicle, they have to paste the voter registered name. They said the beaver and all the materials that they'll be using for these elections is already in place. So you can see the process going on right now. Of course, in the background, a few people are trickling in, but we don't have any queue just yet. Darido reporting for Channels Television News.
there you have it. My colleague Dare Idowu there. I also have my colleague Emperor Simon. He's also in other parts of the state. Take a look at what Emperor Simon is covering, what he can see. Simon, what is happening at your end?
This is Unit 2 of Ward 11, where election process is already in top gear, in the sense that the ad hoc staff are here already setting up the place. For instance, they have already mounted the ballot box. They've also mounted the voting box where voters would be casting their votes. In the meantime, what you see behind me are the ad hoc staff trying to address the voters who have turned out. Some of them turned out as early as 7 a.m. Because they are anxious, they are excited to cast their votes. You can also see there, over there, we have voters checking the voter register to ensure that their names are on the list that have been pasted by the ad hoc staff of INEC. Now, the process here is expected to commence by 8:30 if everything goes out very well. You can see the voters running. They want to hear what they will be told by those organizing the process. So it's really, really election day here. It's clear that it's election day and the people want to exercise their franchise. That's what we have at the moment. My name is Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Thank you so much, Emperor, for your reporting there. Another stop is my colleague, Babajide Agbeyo, who is standing by. Babajide, what is happening at your end?
It's election morning in Ekiti State, and this is Unit 6, Ward 2 in Ifaki, those local government area of the state. And as we have witnessed this morning, the people are out already, waiting to exercise their franchise. They are all beside me here, discussing in clusters, and of course, expecting the poll to open so that they can vote and perform their civic responsibility. The security situation here is still perfect as of now. There hadn't been any report of violence or any harassment of anybody at any point in time. And talking about the voting exercise itself, from what I see here, according to what the chairman of INEC had said earlier, that the voting cubicle has been kind of redesigned or reduced to check vote buying. And what does that mean? When you come here, you do your thumb printing here, and you may not need to even take more than one step to drop your ballot inside this box. And that really means you do not have any business moving out of this space. So anyone who moves from here and fails to cast his ballot here and moves out of here definitely is going the extra miles and may have questions to answer. So we are expecting that law enforcement agents will do the needful, will check anyone who wants to do anything untoward, and that the people will really come out in their large numbers to exercise their franchise as expected. From Ifaki, in Idosi local government of Ekiti State, Babajide Agbeyo, Channels Television News.
Thank you so much. Babajide. Babajide is in Ifaki, in Idosi. Idosi is one of the flashpoints. Please do stay safe. Let's get a sense of how far this is coming. You've got reports from virtually every senatorial district of Ekiti State. How are we covering it for you? Let's hear from the coordinating resident electoral commissioner for Ado Ekiti and its environs. I have with me Professor Samego, who is also a resident electoral commissioner. Thank you so much for joining us on Channels Television. So far, would you say it's been good?
I think it has been very good. And apart from the other places I've been to, I think I need to tell the story of this very location, historically, it has been very problematic, very rowdy. And those who are used to voting here have told me this morning that this is the best, sweet experience they can think of.
So what do you think could have been responsible for this experience? Difference between the past and now?
I think INEC has invested into the outcome you are seeing. In terms of the working on the beavers, in terms of the training of the ad hoc personnel, in terms of the logistics for early movement of people to the polling units. And as you can attest, as early as 7:30, 75% of the polling units in this local government had been opened. And once you achieve that remarkable feat, you solve all other problems. So you start early, you reduce anxiety among people, and the adequate presence of security men has also been very helpful in terms of restoring sanity into the queues. So I think basically this is dividend of a lot of investment and learning from lessons of the past.
Now, this is the major election after the Electoral Act has been passed. So what can you tell us in essence that INEC is doing differently from what you've been doing in the past and now the difference of the electoral law?
Well, I think looking at the electoral law, in terms of the activities that we are doing today and the activities that we'll be doing later, there's no significant difference because we are dealing basically with the voting procedure. It has not changed. The machine we are deploying has not changed. And the system of collecting result and transmission will not change. But certainly,
will it not change? Electronic transmission has been passed. It's part of the law.
No, the point I'm making when I say it will not change is because the same system we are using today, we have used in Edo, we have used in Anambra, we have used in many other elections. So we are simply carrying on with what we have done in recent time.
What about the transmission of result? Because the devil in the process of election in Nigeria is in the collation. That's where people are always afraid that if we go to vote, will it count? Because some people will subvert it by stealing or changing the figures. Is there any dramatic difference that this law will make in the process?
Well, my point about this, and I think Nigerians should not, make mistakes. In terms of the process of transmitting results electronically by presiding officers, once the results are announced at polling units, we are not going to do anything differently from what we did in Edo and what we did recently in Anambra. So, in other words, we are not going to reinvent the wheel today. We have tried this out in many standalone elections. And in fact, I was in Anambra, and what we did in Anambra in terms of result transmission is what we are also doing here, because we are not doing electronic voting.
I think a lot, if we talk about the security of the process, I think a lot has changed between Anambra. The situation in Anambra State was tensed before the election. What do you think, excuse me, what do you think the atmosphere prior to this election has it made any significant difference for the exercise? Has it helped the process, if at all?
Yeah, I think moving from Anambra in terms of the outcome, that level, that sense of public confidence is being restored in the result management process. And I think if you listen to the chairman, when he had to explain at the stakeholders meeting, what we are going to do is simply the process that we inaugurated in recent times, with the Anambra election, and that presiding officers, once they finish voting here, and the results are the results are reflected in Form 60E, they will be snapped, and that process of electronic transmission will begin. That is what we are doing.
Well, it's going to be interesting, and we'll still keep touch with you, Prof, to see what exactly is going on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. It's good to also hear from those who have been part of the process, not only those who are coordinating or preparing this process. Let me speak with one of the voters who has gone through the process. Good morning. What is the name? Can we meet you?
Ololaju Kemi.
Have you voted? Can I see your thumb? Oh, there you go. Great. So, how did the process go? Is this your first time of voting?
No, this is not my first time.
You voted in 2018.
Yes.
You voted in 2014.
Yes.
So you voted now. What is your experience like this time?
What I can say is that the voters is going well. There is no any wala.
How long did it take you before the machine accredited you?
Just like on the line or before I vote. Online.
When you got into that place where they did the accreditation.
Just like 5 minutes. Just like 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, let's also speak with one of those who are monitoring the exercise, because issue of vote buying was a major issue. I'll be speaking with one of the senior officials of the Center for Democratic CDD, Mr. Austin Aibe. Thank you, Austin, for coming today.
Thank you.
Vote buying was one issue that you and your group raised. Have you seen any of that kind of situation happening around here?
So interestingly, there's been very strong evidence that some kind of covert vote buying is ongoing. We've had very strong evidence from people at level of discussion, political actors discussing various polling units across the state, where voters are being asked to move to a certain direction, a certain area. But we cannot say how much was given at this time, but we know that there are movements, there are conversations. We know this is not, the vote buying architecture works in a way that people vote, you see, when you see, then you then buy. So what we're seeing is that there's a movement of voters from a location where they voted to another location where they're being escorted by party faithful. So that is the same strategy. They may not have brought the money to the polling unit, but something like that is going on. In fact, very strongly, what happened in Anambra has happened again in Ekiti. One woman said, I will not accept money to vote. I want to vote my conscience, which means she was offered to vote. So that's that kind of correlation. So there is. And don't also forget the statement before now that if you don't vote, you won't have money.
So what we understand and what we're hearing, we're trying to lay our hands on the facts and the evidence, is the fact that when people are being offered, after they're voting, after they vote, they get a tally, and outside of this place, they get to get the money. That's what we're trying to investigate and find out what exactly is happening. We're hearing this, and we're seeing it, the quiet and the silent manner in which they're going about it. But, I mean, it does look like when there is a process in place, politicians take one step to subvert the process. Can we evenly and drastically mess up with this idea of vote buying? Can we kill it? Can we curb it?
Yes, we can kill it, but the best way to kill it will be electronic voting. So we don't want a ballot that people can see. It is see and buy. If we can stop see and buy, we will reduce vote buying drastically. Now, if you see, I see you move around the cubicle. If we can make the cubicle more in a format that people are not able to display their ballot. The way it is now, there is a policeman just by the corner. So how do we ensure that the voter, after voting at the cubicle, folds the ballot in a way that is covered and then come out and put in the ballot, in the ballot box? That is where we need to go. What electronic voting will do for us will be there will be nothing to see. When you go into a cubicle, you have done the accreditation process, you go into the cubicle, once you press the button, there will be nothing absolutely to justify which party you vote for. So if the parties go ahead to buy ahead, because we saw yesterday, somebody asked me a question, I said there is pre-buying, people are buying before. So that buying before.
There was a time in this state that people were getting fuel a day before the election, yes, as a form of inducement before the election.
But you cannot.
There's a lot of techniques that politicians
but again, you know what the advantage of that is that you can actually lose that fuel if the person goes to the polling unit and eventually not vote for you. Then it becomes the person's conscience. Let's try to do a conceptualization. If you pay before, the voter then have to make up his mind to vote for you or not to vote for you. But in this case, you are putting the voter under a condition that you must vote for me. I will have to see and then pay. If I don't see, I won't pay. So we need to get to the point that politicians will have to automatically pay. If they pay, then the onus will be on the voters to agree to vote.
Thank you so much, Austin Aibe, a member of the senior official from the Center of Democracy, and Development, CDD, to focus their attention on this issue of vote buying, which is very prevalent. We've been saying what is happening because when we talk about monitoring the exercise against vote buying, against unscrupulous activities, you can see NSCDC official, immigration, customs. In fact, we understand that EFCC is going to be on the ground. Perhaps get a sense of how many police officers for these polling units alone. 3 police officers are here watching and waiting very closely, watching what is happening at the polling unit, and party officials are around the cordon area. So you can see there, this is where the polling booth is. But if you look at this carefully, if you look at this, how are you, sir? If you look at this, what is happening right here is somewhat of organization might be needed because it's clumsy, it's rowdy. One wonders how much of anxiety and anticipation that this is getting, you know. You can see the queue goes on and on and on. Well, that is the situation. Alero, what's your take so far?
Can you hear me, Joe? I'm curious. Well, so much has been said. I heard one of the reports that you and your team have filed in a video clip where someone is saying, Dibo Sebe. In other words, they do not want any of this vote buying thing. Can you speak to that very quickly?
Yes, I mean, in Yoruba language, Dibo Sebe means, literally, it means we won't be voting to cook soup. So literally what it meant was that people were getting money to vote so they can go prepare a meal for themselves. But they said that would not happen. They would vote of their conscience this time around, not voting to get a plate of food or a bowl of meal. That's what is being the practice for. Some of them are rejecting it. We're seeing the movement, like the CDD man that I spoke with earlier. I was just trying to cite the Director General of
but
the
before
NYC
you do that,
behind
because
me,
we have to go somewhere,
whether or not
Chill,
we can...
we won't be able to do that right now,
Okay,
but very quickly, speak to this release of partnership between Channels TV and Yaga Africa about ERAD. Can you speak to that very quickly?
Absolutely. At 5 p.m., what we've not seen in Nigeria elections will happen right here on Channels Television in partnership with Yaga Africa, the election result analysis dashboard. Our center is ready, and we will be giving Nigerians the results as they're coming. Live reporting of the results as they're coming. If you have just 30 seconds, let me speak with the DG of the NYC. Just one question to him. Thank you so much, Mr. Fadai, for coming. So far, what has been your assessment?
I've been around, seeing my co-members, and the situation is very calm. Everything is okay. I'm very confident we'll have a hit-free election by what I've seen on the ground.
And your NYC
they are very safe,
boys and girls are doing well?
Okay. They are very excellent. They are doing well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, General. I appreciate it so much. Ayo, thank you for that moment that you've given the General, the DG of the NYC. Ayo, Alero.
Okay then, Sheung. Well, good luck and stay safe. Well, there doesn't seem to be any problem. Everything's okay. We'll come back to you for an update in a short while. Yeah, Ekiti. Well,
going smooth. I mean, with all the, at least we've talked about four locations.
Yes. And everything seemed peaceful.
So far.
People are all in line as they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So everything is going honky-dory.
To stay with the news, just go on Twitter. Channels Television is on Twitter, giving you, the events as they come. And that video on Adibo Sibe, if you know what that means, or if you are interested, as curious as I am, it's right there for you to also see. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, one more conversation about MSMEs. You stay with us. The whole world believes that the biggest employers of labor are micro, small, and medium enterprises all over the world. Okay, so how do we strengthen those capacities? Because they do have challenges. I don't know what those challenges are. Perhaps our guests will be able to speak to them. We'll begin with Her Excellency Ambassador Samuela Isopi, delegation of the European Union to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and to ECOWAS in Abuja. She is here along with Mr. Jean Bakole, who is Director and UNIDO representative, as well as Mr. Jarl Hanstein, UNIDO Chief Technical Advisor of the project, strengthening the capacity of local MSMEs and manufacturers to produce high-quality PPEs and healthcare-related products. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Let me begin with Her Excellency, the Ambassador. Perhaps an enlightenment, an understanding of what we're dealing with would be a good place to start. There are those who are wondering, we know that there are MSMEs and we know what our responsibilities are. We know we all want to make money. So maybe you want to begin by first of all talking about what the identified challenges of micro, small, and medium enterprises are and why the need to strengthen their capacities as a result.
First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me and my colleagues here to this program this morning. Actually, we're going to talk about a project that was launched in the framework of the response to COVID-19 pandemic. So if you allow me, let me start from there. Let me give a context to the discussion that we are having today, because back in 2020, when the pandemic was hitting Europe in particular, the European Union and its member states mobilized quickly to provide support to partner countries around the world, including Nigeria. And the message behind that was very simple and very clear. That the only way to cope with an unprecedented challenge such as the COVID-19 pandemic was through solidarity and international cooperation. And in Nigeria in particular, the Team Europe, so the European Union and its member states, mobilized an exceptional and quick support of 50 million euros channeled through the one UN basket fund managed by UNDP to support the government response to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, a crisis that, you know, that was a multidimensional one and that it also very deeply the economy of the country. And at that time, in the framework of this multidimensional response, I think it was agreed, everyone agreed, that it was essential also to support the weakest, I would say, part of the chain of Nigerian economy, which means to see how to strengthen the resilience of micro and small and medium-sized enterprises that actually represents the biggest part of the economy. And that's why the idea, and that's where the idea of this project came, with several interesting, I would say, features. First of all, to create a local capacity to manufacture protective devices, protective equipment, such as masks, surgical masks, cloth masks, but also sanitizers. I mean, all those products that were considered to be essential to protect the population and also to allow health workers to work safely. And at the same time, so creating this local capacity to meet the demand of the local and the regional market, to strengthen the resilience of those micro and small and medium-sized enterprises. So that was the idea actually behind that project. And I guess my colleagues will be able to elaborate. One interesting thing also is that we, as a donor, as European Union, we specifically asked to target some of these groups, and we asked that most of the enterprises that would benefit from this program should have been led by either women or young people.
Yeah, Mr. Bakole, could you kindly just give us an overview of UNIDO's mandate as well as its work in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning. Um, UNIDO in Nigeria has developed a framework of cooperation with the government of Nigeria. The framework is what we call the country program, which has been developed, in, let's say, strong partnership with the government. And also, we developed a number of components which we think are very, very important to support, the diversification of the economy through the industrialization. And one of the components is focused on MSMEs and private sector development. And it is in the framework of this, this country program. And as Her Excellency said a few minutes ago, 4 agencies, because we are also working in collaboration with a number of other, agencies here within the UN country team. We developed that project to support the national multi-sectoral response plan to address the challenges Nigeria, as other countries worldwide, was facing with the COVID-19. And we think that this project is unique. Is unique in the sense that we think that in order to create more resilient conditions, in particular in this very, very, let's say, a pathetic situation of the COVID-19, we think that we have to build the conditions, the resilient conditions for the local content. And we think to do so, the role of SMEs is extremely very, very important. So we are moving ahead with this project also to anticipate any particular problem. Because remember very well the disturbance we had during the COVID, even if the developed countries themselves are facing the, the problem of the supply chain in healthcare products. And we think that it's very important to identify those small and medium enterprises working on health, care products, to provide with them the necessary training to address a number of challenges they are facing, including also, as I said, to provide training in particular on the quality of what they need to do to improve the quality of the product. Because at the end of the day, I think the objective is to produce more healthcare products for the local market, but also to be able to export the product in the regional market, which will help them also to mobilize resources which can support the local economy and also the national economy. So I would like to take the opportunity here, really, before we move ahead on this discussion, to really thank the European Union for supporting the government of Nigeria through the UN Basket Fund. And at the same time, also take the opportunity to say that this project has been jointly developed by 4 agencies, by WHO, ILO, and UN Women. And as Her Excellency said, one of the strategy to move ahead with this project, number one was also to have a geographic coverage, the 6 geopolitical zones in the country, but also to provide a strong support to projects led by women and youth people. We have approximately 60% amongst the 174 SMEs selected for this project, SMEs led by women, and almost 30 also led by young people. So we think that the SMEs constitute the foundation of the industry. And we cannot really move ahead with sustainable industrialization without getting young people involved in this project. We think really that this is a very
unique. We are scoring goals for the economy of the country, and in particular in this context of post-COVID-19, where we see that everywhere in the world, people are creating resilient conditions to support the industrialization as a driver of the economic development.
Ambassador, could you tell us why the EU decided to fund this project?
As I said before, this is part of the collective response that altogether we decided to give to the government of Nigeria. And as the UNIDO country representative said, this project in particular was very relevant because of the need to strengthen the resilience of those companies, the micro and small and medium sized, that represent the bulk of the Nigerian economy. So the objective was also to protect jobs and to create possibly also new decent jobs. So for us, as I said, it was part of this collective response together with other interventions that were mostly also focusing the health response. And we consider that had a very important role in the framework of this multidimensional response that was needed to cope with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic here in Nigeria.
Well, maybe you want to quickly speak to Your Excellency, the main economic development related sectors that this project seeks to support in Nigeria.
Well, I would say in general that the economic development is very much at the center of our cooperation with Nigeria. So this project is one element of a much broader strategy that we try to implement here in Nigeria, and in particular in the framework of the new cooperation program we launched in February this year, the new multi-annual indicative program for the years 2021-2027, and we decided to dedicate one full pillar actually to the support to the economic development by targeting specific sectors and objectives, youth employment, for example, just also to continue and support the creation of decent jobs for the youth, but also digital and innovation, smart agriculture and renewable energy. So we have quite a number of important projects. If you allow me, maybe just since we are talking about youth employment and women entrepreneurship, to mention some of those. You may be aware that we support this National Jubilee Fellowship Program, which is a flagship initiative of the government of Nigeria, which is also implemented by the UN system and notably by UNDP, and which aims at improve the employability of young Nigerians by placing 20,000 young Nigerian graduates in jobs, in full-paid jobs in the private and public sector. And the European Union is one of the main supporters to that because we firmly believe in the need to create opportunities for the youth. We also partner with the Tony Elumelu Foundation to support women entrepreneurship across Africa and in Nigeria in particular by supporting more than 2,000 women by providing small grants for them to set up their businesses, and they also receive training and coaching. We support, as I said, also key value chains in the framework of this program, which is the National Competitiveness Program, which is part of a larger regional program. We support important value chains for the Nigerian economy, such as ginger, tomato, chili, leather, garment. You may be aware, for example, that Nigerian ginger is rated as one of the best in the world. So by supporting these key value chains, we support the transformation of the sectors, the improvement of quality and better access to market for these products. And then we intervene also in the energy sector. We are actually, the European Union is the main grant donor to the power sector in Nigeria, and we support in particular renewable energies and the diversification of the energy mix in Nigeria through, for example, an important program which is the Nigerian Energy Support Program. We supported the government in establishing 5 solar mini-grid in 5 states, and 6 more are to come.
Well, madam, you've given me something to boast about now. I know that our ginger is the best coming from an ambassador of your status. That's something for me to applaud. But let me ask Mr. Heinstein.
This is an ambassador for Nigeria.
Well, let me ask Mr. Heinstein this one. It presupposes, since this is talking about micro, small, and medium enterprises, it presupposes that there is a selection process. You may want to speak to that and perhaps some of the main activities of the project and what roles the participating agencies are playing.
Thank you, and good morning. Yeah, the selection of 174 enterprises so far, was a very long process. We started last summer, from a list of about more than 2,000. So you can imagine how, we could proceed fixing certain selection criteria. I want to highlight that this group of enterprises constitute actually pilot, a pilot group. The project is of high strategic nature in the sense that it was conceived early last year as an emergency project to cope, with the outbreak of the virus. But at the same time, it is an opportunity to foster, economic development of the productive sector. Now focus on enterprises producing, COVID protection-related items, as Her Excellency and Mr. Bacola explained. So, where do we stand now with the implementation? Now, first of all, we have mobilized already, about 20 experts, in addition to other experts mobilized by the partner agencies. So our 20 experts will focus across four main areas: capacity building, with assisting the enterprises in implementing quality production processes. Business registration. Some enterprises that we have selected are not registered, and they have to be eligible also for benefiting of some equipment. This is the other component. Then capacity building for strengthening and consolidating and expanding the markets that are served currently, as Mr. Bacola mentioned, also for exporting the product. Another subcomponent of the capacity building, very important, is clustering or grouping of MSMEs, of enterprises, to carry out joint actions, to source quality raw material, to target jointly market targets. Enterprises should work more together. This is happening only partially so far, and we think in this context, and especially for the micro enterprises, is essential for them to cooperate. We already checked. We have some medium-sized enterprises that are available even to lead this group. I'm talking about well-organized enterprises. The other component is procurement of equipment. For, I think, 2/3 of the selected enterprises, to replace outdated machinery, to improve production efficiency, and of course, producing quality products. Again, and increase the capacity. A very important element here, if we speak about market and equipment, is also to recover jobs that have been lost because of, I would say because of poorly organized marketing or a lack of marketing strategies. So these two elements, market and equipment, will help to produce better products and to increase the capacity and to recover jobs that were lost.
Okay. For
some, also to increase the present.
Okay.
For enterprises producing already at 100% capacity is an opportunity for them to create additional jobs.
Mr. Hanshan, you said that there were...
The other component focuses on...
Mr. Hanshan, you said that there were, you had to short list from about 2,000 MSMEs. So the 174 to whom you're giving this aid to, what has been their reaction?
No, the reaction has been very positive. We have started now concretely 2 weeks ago to assist directly on the field these enterprises. And we are going to, I think, assist about 60, 70 enterprises by the end of this month, and the others in July. So there has been, really a strong interest, and we have detected really a commitment from the owners. This was, by the way, one selection criteria, the origin of the project.
Is it grants you're giving them or loans? Is it grants you're giving them?
No, these are grants.
Sorry, grants?
Grants. Look, yes, grants. But I want to also, highlight, for instance, the contribution of ILO. ILO will train the enterprises, on access to finance. We have, a relatively substantial budget for supplying equipment, but, not so, not as actually needed, but we go step by step. I think we have an average of $2,000–3,000 of equipment distributed among the 174, actually 125 eligible.
All right, Mr. Bakole, is there if you can speak to us, as we close out on this, is there is there a duration to this project? What are the expectations? What are the expected outcomes of this project? The long-term effects?
Yes. Thank you very much. This, as it has been said, it was an emergency project aimed to support the, multi-sectoral national response to the COVID-19. And Her Excellency said clearly that the objective of the project was to strengthen the capacity of the MSMEs. It's a one-year project. But now, of course, through this project, we saw the importance to move ahead with this kind of project where we can also identify a number of other subsectors where young people and women will be benefiting of a number of support. I think among the key support this project is providing, first of all, we are providing with them we are supporting them to upgrade the skills on the need of the quality, to move ahead with the integration of the quality in the production chain. Because the objective, as we said, is to produce health-square products which can help the government to really address the need of this kind of product locally, but also to strengthen their business. And I think this is absolutely very important since this project now is going to be seen like a flagship, a pilot project.
Okay.
We need now to move ahead in expanding the project, number one, to more than 174 SMEs to benefit from this project, and also maybe to try to identify other sectors where the role of the MSMEs to support the local and national economy is key. Okay. And that's why now, if you allow me, I would like to take the opportunity to say that the country program we start in 2018 is going to end this year. Okay. But the good news is that His Excellency, the President Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, requested to UNIDO to move to what we call, the program for country partnership, okay, with the biggest, let's say, tool where UNIDO provides a support to scaling up the industry sector to drive the economy, to drive the economic diversification of the country.
We'll definitely
in Africa,
forward.
we have only 2 countries.
Yeah, my apologies, Mr. Bakole.
And
we
now
really have
Nigeria is going to be...
Nigeria is going to be what? I'm curious.
The third country is going to be the third country, experiencing this model.
Okay.
So I think it's very important in this PCP, which we are going to start next year, that we really focus on strengthening the capacity of the SMEs. Okay. Because, as I said, this project is a flagship. We have to expand it. We have to increase the number of SMEs which can benefit of the support from various support from EU and other partners, but also to identify a number of sectors.
Well, clearly, Mr. Bakolo, there is so much to say and so much that you would like for people to know and understand about this project. We really look forward to more information coming from you, from your office, from UNIDO over time. But for now, we have to thank you very much for being on our program this morning. Let me begin by thanking Her Excellency Ambassador Samuela Isopi from the delegation of the European Union to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and to ECOWAS, as well as Mr. Jean Bakole, Director and UNIDO representative, along with Mr. Yael Hanstein, who is UNIDO Chief Technical Advisor of the project. Thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, we did say that we'll give you more information from Ekiti State. Well, here is that report. Let's go back to Ekiti. I believe Sheo and the crew are just on standby. Okay, this time it's Kayode Okikiolu. Hello, Kayode. What's new right now? Oh,
the queues.
Haven't seen you in this kind of attire in a while. It must be strange for so many people watching you.
Well, it looks like it's about to rain, really. Oh. So I'm prepared for the weather. So if the rain starts, I just get my hood up so we can keep covering this election for our viewers out there, essentially. But it's good to see you. I'm right here at polling unit 002 in Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti state capital, where residents have come out to exercise their franchise. A lot of them came as early as 7 a.m., just anticipating the process, essentially, so they can get to make at least their own decision as to who gets to lead this state for the next 4 years. As you can see, we have women on the queue. In fact, this woman came with her baby. Imagine that, just so she can exercise her franchise. And essentially, the process is simple. You get to check your name on that list, the list of papers, and then you join the queue. Once you join the queue, you go through the accreditation process with the beavers. And you see, it looks like the queue is moving quite well. Earlier on, we had little skirmishes, but it looks like the officials have gotten a hang of this. I can see that the people are enthusiastic. This is essentially what democracy is about. Women, men, we've seen the elderly. I spoke with a 73-year-old man who came with his crutches earlier on, and for him, he had very positive things to say about this election, but there have been issues of vote buying, reported vote buying. And this is a challenge we're seeing yet again. We had hoped that this would be a thing of the past, but apparently it looks like these people keep reinventing new ways to carry out these nefarious activities. But the good thing is we have someone who's been monitoring this election with Yiaga Africa. And I'll be speaking right now with Cynthia Mbamalu, who is a co-founder of Yiaga Africa. They're on ground as well. They have a situation room and they'll be covering this as well as we are. And I'd like to get some views from Cynthia. Good to see you, Cynthia. It's been quite a busy day, right?
Oh, yes, it's been a busy day, but quite exciting, I'd say.
Quite exciting. Yes. I'd like to start from the elephant in the room. And we've been getting reports of vote buying. Apparently, there are new ways to go about this. So It's not about snapping pictures. It's maybe someone standing afar off, taking a look at what you do. You find a way to fold it and show them that indeed I voted for your party. You drop your paper and then rendezvous at a point. Is that something you've noticed as well?
Oh yes. So one of the indicators is if you see people gathering around somewhere where there is no voting going on and there is an individual who they are surrounding, then you know something is going on there. And we've also gotten reports as high as 5,000 naira is actually being paid to some voters. It's quite worrisome, but you know we had highlighted that this may be an issue because from the pre-election phase, the campaigns were basically all about monies, and now we see a lot of that transaction going on. Although INEC had made efforts to review the setup, how voting booths are set up so that you limit the chances of people seeing how people vote, but somehow they've looked for how to maneuver, you know, or go around the whole setup issue. And I think it's unfortunate that this is now a permanent feature in our elections, but we hope that more voters will be enlightened and desist from selling their votes.
Absolutely. I spoke with some of them earlier on, and what they had to say is no more vote buying. In fact, they had a term, we're not collecting money just to cook a pot of stew and sell our votes. They said no more. But it is sad to see. But what do you think perhaps INEC, the security agencies, are up to the task? Even, yes, they may have reinvented, but do you think that the security agencies as well as other stakeholders are reinventing as well?
So far, we've not gotten reports of arrests because one of the things we were expecting to see in these elections is that the security personnel would go around and when they see these suspicious activities, pick up whoever has the money or whoever is distributing, but we've not really seen that. However, I think there's also the challenge. I mean, INEC can't do much when it comes to vote buying. It's more around the security because INEC is busy administering the elections. But I think the security agencies are a bit more complicit or they do not want to, you know, they don't want to cause any chaos because they feel maybe if we start making arrests, it could create tension and maybe become a threat to violence. But we actually wish they would do more arrests because when you pick up one or two persons, it somehow reduces how people would freely want to bargain or buy and sell votes outside of the polling units.
Great. Just one more thing, Cynthia. Regarding this election overall, how would you rate it in terms of, you know, the process, logistics, deployments, the use of beavers, by the way? I know the goal was to have between a minute and 3 minutes voting process and all of that, but how would you rate this overall?
It's actually been a reasonably good process. So, for instance, one of our data showed that by 7:30, we had about 76% of officials deployed to polling units across the state, which is a good number. So, early deployment meant early commencement of the process. We've also seen good deployment of the beavers and reasonably functionality. Now, the only challenge we've seen with the beavers is in some polling units, it did not authenticate some voters. And we knew that may be an issue because the guideline had provided that you try 3 times. That's the benchmark. After 3 times, you ask the voter to leave and to make an official complaint to INEC. We've just had a little of those issues, but those voters were worried because they wanted to vote. And their names were in the register when they went to confirm from the way it was posted, but the beavers was not authenticating them. That has been the only issue so far. We had some reports of beavers did not function, but it was fixed immediately. So I think reasonably it's been a good process, but this is just, you know, it's not yet noon. So let's see what happens by noon. We have a lot of numbers. We just hope we can finish the process as early as 2:30 as provided in the guidelines.
Also, we have just over 2 hours to end the process. Looks like the queue is moving. Cynthia, it's been good speaking with you. So we'll try to quickly go around and see if there are spaces that people are gathering around to see perhaps if we can catch a glimpse, maybe, just maybe some nefarious activities are going on. Just let's look around this place so you could see perhaps buses that are used to convey logistics. You see some party agents here just monitoring the process. So the idea is if you see people maybe crowding around random areas, then you might want to be suspicious, essentially. So this is a call to the security agencies to ensure that they go around and make sure that we nip this issue of vote buying in the bud. We're still live here at polling unit 002, St. Michael's School, where voters here in Ekiti State are exercising their franchise. Perhaps I could speak with a few people just to get your view on the voting process. How would you describe this voting process so far?
The exercise has been peaceful so far, and the issue of vote buying is not allowed there. So we Ekiti people, we are here to cast our votes for the candidate of our choice.
So even if they approach you saying, let me offer you 5,000 naira.
To vote buying.
Say that again.
We say no to vote buying.
Is that the same for everybody? Are you saying no to vote buying? No to vote buying. So you hear from the people, no to vote buying. I hope this resounds well enough, and I hope it is carried out at the end of the day. We have some other people monitoring the elections as well, and I just want quick words. What would you say about this election?
I will defer to my colleague. He's much more well-versed.
I literally put you on the spot right there, but introduce yourself and tell us how has the process been so far?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Francis Madugu. This is about the first polling unit we're coming to today. It's impressive to see that the queues are in order, and basically the process is going on as expected here.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this?
I mean, this is going on as expected. It's okay, as expected, and the officials are doing their work. And then the citizens here have been orderly and peaceful.
There you go. Orderly, peaceful. We have just over 2 hours to the end of this election. We're on ground all around the state, giving you all the angles to this election. It's going to be, as they have said, a foretaste to what to expect come 2023 in our general election. So from here at polling unit 002 St. Michael's School, Coyote Okikulu reporting for Channels Television News.
You go. Have there been any issues with the beavers?
I'm not sure if Coyote can hear you.
Well, we've gotten reports. Well, I can hear you, actually.
Oh.
I can hear you, Alira. So we've gotten reports about the use of the beavers. A few places we had issues, but we hear that it was rectified, as Cynthia said. As you can see right there, that's the beavers being used, and I don't think it took up to 30 seconds for that woman to be done. So you see the card, the biometrics, or the barcode of the card is scanned. If I could just show you quickly, it is scanned.
Okay, thank you.
I know. You can keep going on and on. Well, I heard the issue of vote buying, but I haven't heard about no to vote selling. Don't answer that one. We'll come back to you some other time.
Thank you, Coyote. Take care. Now, back to the studio, and we're back to our home stretch, and it's my pleasure to welcome Timmy Pudier. Good morning. Timmy Pudier is a filmmaker with an astonishing creative latitude in the production ecosystem.
But one thing you can take away is, first of all, how does it feel being in front of the camera? You are used to being behind the camera.
It's quite intimidating, I would say.
Oh, so now you know how those you put... feels. How do you know how they feel when you put them in front?
When the lights are on you, it's a different feel altogether.
But you put the lights on people all the time.
No, please, say it better. He puts a lot of lights on people's faces, and I'm one of his victims.
Oh.
Yes.
I see.
I'm one of his victims. We just happen to volunteer in the same unit. And I'm the one he's always putting the lights on. Okay, so thank you for once.
He does look
retaliating.
He does look intimidated. Relax.
I'm gonna try.
Well, you heard Alera say before we came on air the other time that there was a time that she is one of the most prominent voices of commercials on radio
in those days.
That doesn't mean that she's any less relevant now.
No, the voice is still the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
You are a filmmaker, but let me detail that. Maybe we want to detail what does it mean to be a filmmaker? Just tell us about that.
Okay.
It's easy to assume that you know what it means to make a film.
Yeah.
But tell us what it comprises.
Okay. I'm going to say that it's quite vast. So most times when people hear filmmakers, most times what they think about is just Nollywood movies.
That's right.
But it's way beyond that. I told somebody once, people don't realize that those who make TV commercials are short filmmakers. They make very high quality short films because it's you telling a whole story in 60 seconds. It's a whole different skill set.
Or 30.
Or 30. It's a whole different skill set. And sometimes the work involved in that is way more than writing that whole 90 minutes movie that you have the time to tell everything. So there are people who do the digital movies for cinema.
This is one of your films?
For YouTube, yeah. That's The Mechanic. It's a short film I made there sometime in 2016, I think.
Okay.
How short?
It's about 16 minutes. And it won the best short film in Nigeria in Abuja Nigeria Film Festival.
Whoa.
For 2017. So, thank you. The story behind that was actually one of those where in Nigeria, it's assumed that if you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to be in Lagos if you need to have a shot at a career. So in most other parts of the country, the industry is not yet there, so to say. So if you want to be an actor, you're in maybe Warri, where I grew up, you know you have to have something else you're doing or you don't have a career. So when I started, I grew up in Warri, went to film school in Cape Town, South Africa. When I came back, there was this thing where everybody felt like, oh, you can't do anything. So the mechanic was one of those challenges I took on. So the entire crew, I was a director, I wrote, I produced, directed, did almost everything. Or practically everybody else, my DOP and all of that, everybody was from Warri. People who have trained, but we're all asking ourselves these questions. Are we going to be here? We're going to go. So we took that risk and made a movie that won national award. For all of us in the team, was the first time having that kind of feeling. It did a whole lot of good. It made us believe that regardless of where you are, and it's the same message we tell everybody right now, excellence is excellence.
Exactly.
If you live in Lagos or you live in some remote place, if you are committed to excellence, it's excellence. So in filmmaking, for example, people can castigate Nigeria. We have a lot of great stories, but it's unfortunate that only a few people take out time to really cook it, and then the whole process. We talked about light just now. Something as basic as light is so fundamental to the whole process of filmmaking, but sometimes let's just do. You just slap it here and there, and it comes out, and it looks, and you tell, there's a story in here, but it's so offensive to watch, you can't stay through to the end.
But do people appreciate the effort that goes into it? I ask that because people just want to see a movie. Just want to see the story. Quality, define quality. So some people just want to see a film.
Yeah.
Just want to watch a movie.
That's the thing. I think it's an innate thing. People appreciate the quality without even knowing they do. Let me put it that way. So I tell my other professionals in the work, when we talk sometimes, I say, this is the crazy thing. When we are talking our technical jargons, we go all about, I want to shoot in the Red Gemini 5K, the Beast to 8K, and Ari. After all the technical jargons,
I'll just say, are you
for
done?
the man out there, there's only one thing that matters. The film is very clear.
Finish.
So
Finish.
I honestly,
the film is clear, the audio is clear.
Good,
I don't have to hang on to my remote and be turning up, down. When Timmy talks, I have to turn it down. When he talks, I have to raise
do you
it.
understand? So investing a little more time in those technical things to put together one thing that when that person looks at it and says it's clear, they're telling you everything about it is just okay. Like you said, I don't have to at this point say reduce, it's getting too loud, and then increase. Something as basic as doing a final mix and mastering of your audio after the movie. But not everyone is detailed enough to do those tiny things. And sometimes I understand the actual challenge there for the average filmmaker, especially those who work in the Nollywood space with movies. The funds are often not there. In the commercials, it might be a bit different. So
I'm sure you have long since moved away from Warri.
Oh, yeah.
Because all these brands I'm seeing here, you couldn't have been staying in Warri and getting to do all these commercials.
I left home since 2015. And I've been around since then.
And you have been afloat since then.
I have been quite lovely. Just living in
Oh,
a
yes,
car.
yes, I can see that. I can see the list here. You know.
Let me just poke this. Talking about commercials, we can't mention brands, obviously. But we've gone quite a long way from what existed in the 80s, where the production quality was in one way or at one level. In some cases, they used graphics, paper graphics, to where we are today.
Well, the industry has moved since then. Yes.
But do you think the minds have moved with the industry?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because the growth, we're talking about the people in that space, it's personal. Everybody's responsible for their growth. There are people around now that you meet who are investing in themselves to go learn, to grow, because the thing is people are getting aware every day that the minute your work is going to go online, your competition is no longer your neighbor next door. people will judge that work the way they judge anybody from anywhere on the planet. So if you really want to play in that global space, you have to up what you're doing.
Yeah.
So because of that, quite a number of persons are pushing the barriers. Like, you know now that back then, like you're saying, when you were using those things, you had an excuse for why your quality shouldn't be the same. But you're using the same equipment you're using in the same Hollywood stuff right now. So people will judge you the same. Yes, not everybody has gotten there, but it's only a matter of time. When you realize the industry is leaving you behind, you move.
Nobody will tell you.
Nobody will tell you.
Let me ask you this. I saw the making of The Sound of Music. They had to use helicopters for that opening shot. But now, of course, the drones are there.
Technology has
Tell us what technology, what innovations we need to see, or rather that are already coming up, that if you don't ship in, you will ship out. One of them is VR. So tell us if there are some others like that and you only have about 60
Cut out
seconds.
the jargon, thank you.
It's virtual reality. Is it VR? Is that virtual reality?
It's actually virtual reality.
Okay.
So there are so many that you can't list, but I always come back to the base. When you bring all those technology, you always have to first consider the market you're feeding. Because you can do VR and then you ask in Nigeria right now, how many people have access to even watch it? What kind of TVs do you have? What kind of theaters do we have that can actually allow you to enjoy the whole experience? Like we said earlier, you have a 4K TV at home and all the videos you have are in 1080. And then you shoot 4K and maybe the station that's going to air it or wherever is going to do 1080. So after you shoot 4K, 5K, 8K, when you are now sending it to the local stations, you still bring it to 1080 or 720. You ask yourself, why did I kill myself?
Why did I bother?
And all of that. So you want to grow globally, but at the same time, you have to be responsive to the environment you are in so that you don't alienate yourself. That does not also mean you have to drop your quality. You can still deliver quality while still being appreciative of your environment.
What are you working on at the moment?
Well, right now, I just finished I was on set the last 2 days. We're doing a TV commercial for StarHub. It's the youth expression of Leicester Christian Center. So something is coming up. So they have this amazing story they were telling. So I was opportune to be directing the commercial. So we set the last 2 days, and it was really fun. It was both work and a teaching experience for me because you have so many young people were asking 1,001 questions while the work was going on. Boy, it was wonderful. I loved doing that.
When work is fun, it's more enjoyable, isn't it?
Exactly.
Temi Pudie, a filmmaker, thank you very much for joining us on Sunrise today and
My pleasure.
closing our show. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, man.
So, thank you for being with us today. That's our package. I'll see you next week with another interesting package, or rather, we will see you next week. Amalera Edu.
Just in case I want to go somewhere, right?
Who knows?
Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.